here they say it sounds like Berkeley, the city next door to Ferguson, is expecting the very worst.
I definitely feel like they know what's going to happen right now. Yeah, I do. I feel like they already know with this letter, getting prepared, that sure, they don't want to get hurt. But I think, yeah, they pretty much telling us, yeah, this guy, what everyone wants to happen is not going to happen.
Pins and Needles does not properly describe the situation at the moment in Ferguson, Missouri. Citizens are promising there will be violence if the grand jury does not return the decision they want in the case of Michael Brown's death. The governor has promised there will be a strong law enforcement presence and a show possibly from the National Guard. Meantime, there seems to be no one working the ground to try and keep the peace. Let's welcome to MidPoint a former Florida statewide prosecutor, now a partner in the firm Holland Knight, who understands not just the law but the regional impact as well. William Shepard joins us here in the studio. Bill, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me today.
Now, you know the area, correct? The area around Ferguson and St. Louis.
I do. I grew up in St. Louis. I spent a good part of my life there, and as a young lawyer, I practiced law in the city of St. Louis. So I've lived in the city and the county, know the area well and love it.
When you hear what's happening, what does this speak to you on your knowledge of the area? Does this sound like the area that you left behind, or something, because the absolute trigger that this area seems to be sitting on?
I think what's happened is the economy in the area has changed. Some of the big businesses that were successful and big employers there have changed. Part of the dynamics have changed, but I think what we're seeing in Ferguson is not really the people of Ferguson. The folks that I speak to, the law enforcement folks that I know in that community, they're not as worried about the local people. They're worried about people who are coming in from outside and are coming there not for the right motives, but to cause problems.
What about then the legal community then? The attorney generals, the judges, the people in Ferguson and around it. What then should they be doing right now at this time to prepare themselves for what you believe and many others believe will be an influx of interlopers who just want to come in and create havoc?
Right. Well, I think the governor now has set the right tone. At the outset, I had concerns about his immediate call before any investigation for the prosecution of the officer. He's the former attorney general and should understand the process. But now he's called for calm, he's called for peace. You've seen the same from law enforcement officials. I haven't seen it as much from the attorney general, Chris Koster, who I haven't seen
Is that
in the
odd,
state
though,
of
when you don't see the attorney general speaking out?
The attorney general's role there, much like the governor's role in a situation like this, is the use of the bully pulpit. It's leadership. It's somebody who comes forward and talks to the community and says, I know the process, I know the laws, I know this community. Here's what we need to do. We need to let the grand jury work. Bob McCullough, on the other hand, seems to have been doing a great job on this, has been plowing through witness after witness. He hasn't just made some sort of summary presentation to the grand jury, but instead, you see reports almost daily of witness after witness coming through. He's got his top people working on it. These are professionals. He's not out having press conferences every day talking about what he's going to do. He's just in there doing it.
What about those who say that when you're the governor of the state and you come out and say, we will not tolerate any nonsense here, I may bring in the National Guard? Some people are saying that that's exacerbating the situation and that's making it worse and that's going to drive the violence. I find that to be a little disingenuous when I hear that.
I think preparation should not be ever criticized. And part of what the governor has said is they've got 1,000 officers who've had special training, just as if you were going to have a G8 summit or any sort of thing where there are significant people who are going to be protesting. We know that's going to happen. The question is, how do we make sure that the people who are protesting are protected so that they can exercise their constitutional rights to do it, but not have them hurt, injured, or have the police injured? I mean, these are folks who are going to their job to protect that community, and he owes it to them, just as their command staff owes it to them, to make sure they're all safe as well.
We've got about 40 seconds, and we'll take a break, come back, look at the grand jury. But as we talk about getting ready for it, there's a group in Ferguson that says we want the police to show up just in their normal clothing, no helmets, no shields, nothing protective, because that would make the situation worse. That's impossible, isn't it? And that's just not normal to understand because the cops are trying to protect their lives as well.
Ed, I think that part of what you hear are different people who have different views, but the professionals have to dictate this, right? I mean, this is something that command staff has to dictate and has to assess the situation and respond appropriately to protect the people who are out on the streets and to protect the people who are on the front lines.
And protect the property as well, which we'll talk about.
Absolutely.
All right, there you go. We'll be back with more on the Ferguson issues, and we'll also talk about the grand jury and what's happening now. And later on this hour, the issues that have us always wondering about the future of America. Because from time to time here on MidPoint, we decide to introduce you to the people of Outland. And boy, we got some winners today. It's coming up right here on MidPoint, where we question everything.